All right, everybody. Welcome back to episode 74 of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. I'm joined with Dr. Oz this morning. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey,
fancy seeing you here.
Mehmet, St. Patrick's Day is over, brother. We gotta get this up. By the way, can we just say how much older he looked?
Of course.
This is not Dr. Oz anymore, you guys.
No, that's young Oz.
This is the young Mehmet. Oh my gosh, this takes me back to the Oprah days. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, how old do you think he is now? I have no idea.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm gonna guess without looking. Don't look yet. Are you looking? I'm gonna guess he's 61. Final answer. Lock in. 61. Am I close?
I would say 63.
All right.
63 is my final answer. Yeah, guys, we have a great show for you guys scheduled out today. Yesterday, we got really deep into the weeds with the Dr. Oz stuff, Senate Finance Committee hearing. That being said, we did feel like that we didn't have time to get into everything. And so we decided to kind of run it back this morning for you guys and get into some of the things we did not have time to get into yesterday. That being said, though.
Okay, hang on. He turned 65 in June.
Ah, there it is. Okay.
Who's sending T65 mail to Mehmet right now? He's getting
probably a lot of people.
Oh, he's getting hammered. I bet we're probably hitting him too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome.
I'm sure a lot of people are sending the inquiries to Mr. Oz as we speak.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I wanted to start today's episode off with a tale about preparation on my part. Okay, so yesterday I kind of tried to leave a little bit of the weekend shenanigans out of the episode just because I'm like, we got a lot to cover, not a lot of time to cover.
You need to tell this story. I was going to actually tell you you have to tell this story.
It's terrible. Now, do I want to tell this story? Absolutely not. It makes me look like not the most competent individual, but this show's about transparency. And so here we go. Okay, so Saturday, I am out and about in the morning, and I see a notification on my phone somehow, don't even remember how I saw it, that Shane Gillis was in town, the great Shane Gillis. And he was going to be performing a show downtown at the Delta Center. For those of you that don't know, Delta Center is where the Utah Jazz play. And it's about 45 minutes away from my house. I live away from all of that chaos. I don't want to live next door to that. I'm secluded, as they say. And so I'm like, oh, this would be great. So I go to the website, I'm like, let's get some tickets. Get a last minute babysitter. Me and the wife will go. It'll be awesome. And so buy the ticket. I go to the website. Every ticket is sold out. I'm like, yikes. So then I go on, SeatGeek and some of these other platforms, and there are some people indeed reselling some tickets, probably for a nice little profit. And I see these seats that are third row, so we're right up at the stage. And the Delta Center is a big arena, by the way. So like I've been to concerts and stuff where you're like third, fourth row, things like that. It's an experience. Now, for 2 tickets together with all the fees and everything, it was about $1,000. So I was like, oof. I'm like, that's a lot for a show. I'm like, but I want to go. Let's go.
Those are nice seats. That's a nice seat, dude.
So I buy the tickets. Well, come to find out, our normal babysitter, usually she'll come on date nights 4 or 5 o'clock, something like that. Well, we asked her last second. This was my fault, by the way. Because I, out of the blue, am a butterfly and like, let's go. And my wife stressed out. My wife stressed out. She's like, we didn't really plan this. I'm like, plan, schman. Plan, schman.
The plan's now.
This is the plan. So, the babysitter gets back to us and says, I can't come until 7 because I have a previous engagement that I need to attend to. So show starts at 8. It's 8 to 9:30. And I'm like, all right, 45 minutes to get there. I'm like, it's fine. I'm like, we might miss the opening act or anything, but I'm like, I don't care about the opening act. Comedians.
Right.
You ever seen like a famous comedian, their opening act? Sometimes it's like a C-list comedian, celebrity kind of thing, but oftentimes it's someone you don't know, you never heard of.
Right.
And so I'm like, it's fine. So we just book everything. Well, we get down there about 7:50, 10 minutes before the show starts, to discover that we can't find a parking spot anywhere in Salt Lake City. Every parking garage, we probably went to 10 or 11 different parking garages, full. We go into a few, and there's like 60 cars driving around in these parking garages, bumper to bumper traffic in these parking garages. There's people getting out, yelling at each other. Like everyone is. We're not the only people that succumb to this.
That's my spot. Get out.
Well, the thing is, there's no spots. So,
Right.
But the people, they won't shut off some of these parking garages, so you don't really know if there's like a spot, creaked in the corner. And so, long story short, it got to be about 8:50. Show ends at 9:30, if you remember. And we still haven't found a spot, and we've been driving around for an hour. And I'm like, this isn't happening. So we left. No show. No Shane Gillis.
Here's my hope, because I was thinking about you telling this story. I think you read my mind, because I was like, Christian needs to tell this story. I hope that somehow Shane Gillis hears this story and reaches out to you and says, I'm so sorry that happened. Here's tickets to my show in Denver. We're flying you out. We're putting you and your wife up. Guys, if anyone watches this, you listen to the show, and you happen to have a relationship with Shane, send him a DM, let him know, say, hey, my buddy Christian, you sold out the whole city of Salt Lake. He couldn't find a parking spot. That's brutal. That hurts my heart.
And I've gone to a lot of events at that arena. Oftentimes, if you go to like a concert, they'll block off half of the arena, right? So like the stage is in the middle.
Right.
Like it's facing this way, right?
Right.
This was not that. They had the whole arena open, just like they would for a jazz game. So it's like all around, so like he's in the middle and everyone's all around. So like, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, well, this is how, we've done it with concerts. It's not a big deal. We can find a spot. But like half the arena is sold out instead of the entire arena. Makes a big difference, apparently. And usually we're getting there earlier than 10 minutes before the start of the show, so I'm sure that has something to do with it as well. So I felt dumb. I felt like a dope, because I know better. I've lived here my whole life. I've gone to tons of things down at the Delta Center, formerly Energy Solutions Arena, and and before that, Vivint Smart Home Arena.
That's right.
I've been to all kinds of events there. I know better. You either get there earlier, you take an Uber, you take the train tracks down, something like that. I knew better. I felt dumb. And that's my story. That's my Saturday night. Didn't end up doing much of anything. The rest of the
Oh, man. When you first told me yesterday you got tickets to Shane Gillis, I was really jealous. And then when I heard where the story went, I was like, no jealousy anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not jealous of how that story went. I had it's the weekend, you guys, and so that means I'm hanging out with seniors. That's my thing on the weekends, like last weekend. I did have an interesting conversation. I was in Bend, Oregon for my son's basketball tournament, and I did talk to a senior. And again, it was kind of one of those things, knew what I did. I have a Medicare agency, blah, blah, blah. We're chit-chatting.
Talk where your feet are.
Yeah. And there was this really big concern that came up about Social Security. and the future of Social Security. You know, and he said to me, he's like, you know, Glenn, if Social Security goes away or radically changes, it would really hurt me and my family. And I thought that was interesting because, you know, this is something that's top of mind for seniors. This is something that's top of mind for probably a lot of clients. You know, obviously, this is something that's in the news cycle all the time. It's not just the latest administration and anything that's going on or being said. You could probably find a news article every single month for the past 10 years where someone's wanting to speculate about the end of Social Security, or Social Security is going to be bankrupt by 2033, or blah, 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 blah. So obviously, new administration, they're talking about budget cuts, etc. So, you know, that is something that was very concerned. I could tell how concerned this senior was. So, but, you know, just kind of, again, got into more of the data. He's like, I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to talk politics, but, you know, talked a lot about what the future could potentially look like. And I tried to just really reassure him. I'm like, you know, I've been hearing this for the entire time that I've been in the industry, you know, from day one. Medicare's going away, Social Security's going away. For the past 10 years, I've heard that from day one. So try to give them some peace of mind that I don't think this is going to disappear tomorrow. But I thought that was interesting.
I find it funny that you have more interactions with seniors than I do at this point.
I don't know. They just come. They come find me now, or maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know what it is.
You're hanging around with your kind, going to bridge tournaments.
Well, you know what it is, to be honest, is when we first merged the companies and someone asked me what I did, I would, you know, he would be like, well, I have a call center and they do marketing, and I have a insurance. I'd be like trying to like explain, I'd like whiteboard it to them, you know, I'd be like, okay, well, you know, this does it. And now I'm just like, yeah, I have a Medicare insurance agent. You know, I own a Medicare insurance agency.
Yeah,
like I've really simplified this thing. I'm like, I'm not going to explain this. I have a Medicare insurance agency. What's up? Like, what do you need? How can I help?
What up?
What up? What up, good senior sir?
Okay, so there's some spots that I wanted to get into with the hearing. Before we do that, though, it might be appropriate for us to get into this episode's sponsor. So, guys, this episode is brought to you by Everything Senior Insurance. That agency that Glenn's telling the seniors that he owns. That's what he's discussing. That's what he's talking about. Guys, Everything Senior Insurance, if you're watching this and you're an agent and you're looking for an FMO, someone that you can trust, somebody that will give you great support, someone that will give you great resources, technology, discounted leads, great, fantastic training, guidance, Everything Senior Insurance has got everything you're looking for in one spot. And when it comes to all of that, we just announced the other day that we are opening the floodgates, as they say, and being able to take agents in bunches. We were kind of going through a little bit of a restructuring on that side of the business, and we're coming out the other side. So reach out to myself, to Glenn, reach out to our contracting team, whatever it is that might be easier for you to reach out to. If you'd like to get some more information, or maybe you're just like, I've followed for a long time, you know, I know what's going on. You know, I got to the bottom of this, and I'm just ready to go right now. Reach out. We are here to help, and we're looking for great people to partner with on your contracts. So, Everything Senior Insurance, you guys. All right. So let's jump back into the hearing a little bit from yesterday. So the first area I thought that was interesting that we didn't get to yesterday was Elizabeth Warren. She has about 5-6 minutes of Elizabeth Warren-ness.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be a good idea if we jumped into that specific part of this. So let me...
I'd love to spend some time. Like, there's a lot of big topics that we didn't really have time to discuss at all. So there's a lot of stuff I think, the multi-year plan as an example, that was the idea that he kind of floated out there, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a really interesting topic. I'd love to talk some more
Absolutely.
about. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I definitely the Elizabeth Warren thing, the fact that she wouldn't just tear him apart, because again, that was kind of what I think you and I both speculated ahead of time.
She did go after a carrier, a very large carrier, without saying their name, of course. Okay. So there is some spice to it. Okay. And here we go.
They change plans and they're being asked to go through step therapy once more, therefore giving the patients a valley of lack of response until they get to where they've already know they should be. Thoughts?
Senator Cassidy, that is one of the most frequent complaints I hear from physicians. Patients see it on the other side, which is I can't get the treatment. I'm in agony. I'm in pain. I really know what works for me, but no one will give it to me, even though I have insurance. Like, I'm part of Medicaid. I'm a beneficiary. I should be allowed to get access to this medication, which I'm told is in the plan, and yet it gets slowed down.
I'm at the wrong timestamp. My apologies. Hang on just a second here, guys.
All I see is Lester's face now when I see Dr. Oz.
Lester?
Yeah, because one of our virtual assistants photoshopped another one of our virtual assistants on Dr. Oz's face.
Okay, here we go. I think this is it.
If confirmed, you would oversee Medicare coverage for more than 66 million Americans. Now, nearly half have traditional Medicare, where the federal government provides health care coverage directly. The other half are on Medicare Advantage, where the federal government pays a private for-profit insurer to administer the health benefits instead. And surprise, surprise, the privatized Medicare costs a whole lot more. So what?
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise.
Surprise,
Gotcha.
surprise. Sorry, I didn't have anything really to say there. I just wanted to chime in. Sorry, we'll continue.
Let's talk about the top trick that Medicare Advantage insurers use to gouge taxpayers: upcoding. I understand Senator Cassidy started on this morning, and I just want to dig a little deeper. In Medicare Advantage, taxpayers give insurers a set amount per patient. The more diagnoses or the more codes the patient has, the higher the payment. Now, in theory, this covers higher costs for sicker patients, but insurance companies get the money for the codes, not actually for the services they do or don't deliver. So Medicare Advantage insurers have figured out that if they can add a bunch of fake diagnoses that they don't actually have to spend money treating, they can really boost their profits. One example, last year, the Wall Street Journal identified 66,000 Medicare Advantage patients diagnosed with diabetic cataracts who had already gotten cataract surgery. Now, that is, as you know, anatomically impossible. So Dr. Oz, insurers pocketed an extra $178 million in taxpayer money last year, thanks to just this one fake diagnosis. Does that sound like Medicare fraud to you?
Senator Warren, I appreciate you spending time with me in your office. The answer is yes. It's
Good.
Anatomically impossible. And I'll give you one more example.
Okay.
Which is sending someone to your home, which you brought up in the office.
This was very interesting because what they get into at this point is house calls. So for those of you that aren't familiar with house calls are something that various very large Medicare Advantage insurers have implemented, and it's not a new thing, by the way, for quite some time now, where they will basically have a healthcare provider that they partner with, a third party, oftentimes go to homes of their beneficiaries and do like a physical, like a, not really a physical, but like a check, check their blood pressure, things like that in their own home, which in theory sounds good. I've been a big proponent that I'm not a big fan of these for some time, because most of the carriers, they pay these third-party organizations based on how many they have quotas, right? Based on how many of these checks they actually do. And so these organizations historically have been pretty relentless. Like I had one client one time with a carrier that I won't name call us because he had received 50 calls in a week from the organization wanting to come to his house and do a health check.
So is the idea that they're auditing their health, like based on like they're trying to match up like what they're being billed for? Is that where this is going?
No, I think they're two separate things, which we'll talk about what she talked about in the beginning of this clip as well. But there's two things. So the carrier will say publicly that they're increasing the client's preventative visits, which means things are caught earlier, which ultimately keeps the client healthy.
Right.
Which is probably true. The other part of it is they want to get as much data on that client as possible. And if they're in control of their primary care visit in that intimate of a way, they have a lot of data on that client.
What I found really interesting there too is that he slipped in really fast. He's like, "When I was in your office, Senator Warren." He made sure to say that public. Like he wanted to slip that in there. Like, I had a private meeting with Senator Warren. Like he wanted everyone to know that had happened, which I think is really interesting.
Which he did, over the course of this hearing many times with different senators. He's like, when we were meeting, when we were doing this, So yeah, I mean, that's definitely, a very interesting thing there. So
just career politician type stuff, in my opinion,
Before I hit play again, okay, so the stuff that she was talking about previously about the codes, right? Like
yes.
The Medicare Advantage carriers are compensated based on how many codes they get billed for, that kind of thing. I don't feel like I'm up enough on that specific aspect of it to really know, but it doesn't surprise me.
Well,
if it is the case.
I mean, it isn't that as simple as what we've talked about with billing before, where they're going to get paid more based on certain billing codes. That was
sure. Yeah.
So they're might be exaggerating or potentially lying about certain billing code. I feel like we kind of talked about that in that entire episode with when we were going through the whole claims. We're talking about the claim situation. I thought we kind of covered some of that.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but the details and the aspects of like how specifically Medicare Advantage carriers are compensated, right? For years, it was basically like it's a lump sum per beneficiary, but it's much more detailed than that. It depends on where the client is, and I have heard before that it's based on how much care they're providing per beneficiary, but
it's gotta be right.
It would make sense. It would definitely make sense.
How can they lump sum? I mean, I guess in theory, because like you'd want to incentivize Medicare Advantage carriers to try to keep people as healthy as possible, right? That would make sense to me, right? You'd want to be like, hey, the goal is to keep these people healthy and alive. So maybe if you are super focused on preventative and you're getting a lump sum per beneficiary, that incentivizes you to keep people healthy because you don't want to spend that money on claims. Right?
I do not believe in it for a second that the preventative checks have anything to do with CMS or Medicare. Because if CMS was such a believer in preventative care, they would cover physicals under original Medicare. They don't. There's all kinds of preventative care that original Medicare doesn't pay for. Original Medicare. So there's two scenarios, right? Let's say, Glenn, we gave you diabetes.
Ouch.
And let's say you're now on Medicare. So you are 30 years older and diabetic. Congratulations. And there's two scenarios, right? Let's say you're diabetic and you need to go in once a year to have your levels checked by your doctor, right?
Right.
That is related to a pre-existing condition, and in the eyes of Medicare is looked at as medically necessary for your yearly check.
Right.
Let's say we age you 30 years and you're not diabetic. You're healthy as a horse. You've really succeeded with your health journey.
Thank you. I feel
And that-
great.
And now, but let's say, you want to go into the doctor just to get a physical. There's nothing wrong with you. There's no pre-existing conditions, but you're a big believer in yearly checks, right? In that scenario, Medicare would deem that as not medically necessary, and you're paying out of pocket for that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's this kind of we could this whole thing could turn into an ethics conversation around, if they are billed for if the patients who are sicker are making the carriers more money, doesn't that essentially incentivize the carriers to keep people sick, or maybe even want to make people sick because they're making more money on the sick beneficiaries? I would like to think that the system is structured in a way where it wants healthy individuals and maybe even incentivizes insurance carriers to have more healthy beneficiaries. But, it very well could be the opposite way. It very well could be that some of the sicker patients, Advantage carriers are getting paid more money on.
Yeah, I don't know all the specifics, right?
I don't
in
know.
terms of that.
I'm speculating.
I don't, just because Elizabeth Warren says it doesn't mean I take it as gospel, though. Like,
It's
I've
true.
heard her say,
If she says it.
I've heard her say so many asinine, backwards ass statements over the years about healthcare, Medicare, carriers, Advantage plans. So this specific element, I'm not 100% sure on, but I'm skeptical just because she said it. If she said the sky was blue, I'd be like, oh, I got to question that one. Because of her track record with this stuff. She has an agenda. She wants.
Oh, absolutely. She's not bipartisan by any means.
She wants socialized medicine. She's been on the record. She had a presidential campaign based around it.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's keep going.
Yes, let's do it.
If you're going to say it, I won't say it, but you pointed out something that's very real, which is if you send someone if an insurance company sends someone to your home, there's probably a reason for it. And so if they're doing ultrasounds to look for minor atherosclerotic plaques, which is not really something that needs to be treated, and most Americans have, it's primarily done to upcode you, which has two problems. One, it's cheating because you're able to charge more for those patients. But then people who truly have limb-threatening peripheral vascular disease, who have that box checked in their care, those companies, insurance companies, don't get paid more. Those doctors don't get reimbursed more for doing what is ethically correct. So it doesn't just help the scoundrels who are stealing from the vulnerable. It's actually hurting the people trying to take care of those vulnerable populations.
In fact,
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. So basically what he's saying is they're checking for things that don't probably really need to be checked in order to increase the amount of coding and get more compensation per beneficiary. So there you go. Your answer on why do they try to do these health checks? Publicly facing what they say is we want to keep the beneficiaries healthy. And I do think there's a portion of that. I don't think that's totally wrong, but I think there's your real motive right there.
Well, you know what this reminds me of? It takes me back to the cancer kits all over again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there were people who had no genetic history of cancer who did not need a genetic cancer screening test, but people were trying to make money. And so those were getting pushed on everybody, and that's kind of the same thing he's talking about. Like people getting really expensive tests done that don't need them done, Yep. It's very interesting.
All right. Let's keep
going.
going.
With hundreds of insurance agents and agency owners at the event, this could not be a better opportunity to spotlight your business. If you're looking for a sponsorship opportunity and where to spend your sponsorship dollars this year, the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit is the spot to do it. You can have your own booth.
You can network with agents. This is the 4th annual summit, so there's going to be a lot of agents there and a lot of agents who are looking for help from vendors for leads, educational vendors. You could have a software tool. There's so many great vendors that we've had in the past, and we're looking at a lot of great opportunities for businesses to sponsor at the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit. So if you are looking for a sponsorship opportunity, make sure to check out 7figuresmedicareagentsummit.com.
Get your tickets today while they're still available and reach out about sponsorship opportunities. We'd love to have you involved with the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit in 2025. Now back to the show.
Let's talk about how bad that upcoding is that comes from the home visits. HHS Inspector General found that in 2022 alone, United Health used these home visits to add about $2.3 billion worth of diagnoses that led to absolutely no treatment. And I take it you think that sounds like fraud as well.
We are, I think, as an agency, aware of this. I haven't been in there yet, but if confirmed, this will be one of the topics that is relatively enjoyable to go after because I think we have bipartisan support.
I love hearing this. So upcoding is a scandal. And overall, we know that Medicare Advantage overpayments cost at least $83 billion in a single year. So $83 billion, remember that number. Last month, Republicans in the House passed a budget framework that sets up $88 billion in annual cuts to healthcare, Medicaid funding for seniors in nursing homes, and for people with disabilities who have a home health aide and more. So Dr. Oz, I have a simple question. If you had the choice, would you rather cut waste, fraud, and abuse by a Fortune 50 health insurance company in Medicare Advantage, or cut funding for Medicaid, which covers half of all seniors in nursing homes and 1 in 3 of America's children?
My goal is to improve the health care of the American people. And as you create the argument, the former sounds like a more rational way to do that.
I appreciate that. You know, I am happy to work with Republicans to go after waste, fraud, and abuse, but let's cut out waste, fraud, and abuse where it actually occurs, like upcoding in Medicare Advantage. Republicans cutting healthcare for seniors and for babies and for people with disabilities, while the waste and the fraud just roll right along for a multi-billion-dollar insurance company, is sickening. And I will fight that every step of the way. Thank you, Dr. Oz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
So very politically charged at the end there, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, a lot of this really doesn't have that much to do with the interests of the American people in CMS. A lot of it is like making your political opponents look bad
For sure.
and being like,
They're
"Ooh."
posturing, right? It's all
Yeah.
there's a lot of posturing going on.
I mean, oh man, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you don't, as a viewer, you don't really know what's theater and what's an actual general concern. I would argue that for a lot of these politicians, they don't really have concerns about much of anything. It's all fucking theater.
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 We are currently at the theater right now. Senator Warren, what a performance at the theater.
So any thoughts on that segment there?
So that portion right there where she was talking about United Healthcare adding $2.3 billion to their bottom line through that testing that resulted in 0 diagnosis, right?
Yeah. Yep.
How can you separate? They run tests all the time that come back negative, right? Oh, you don't have this. You don't have. So
that's a preventative check.
Right. So how can you say that that's fraud? How can you say that because 2.3 billion, whatever the number was, how can you say that all of those tests, because no diagnosis resulted from that test, because obviously if the test is negative,
you're not going to diagnose them with something based on a negative test result.
Of course.
So this seems like my gut reaction was like, what a huge jump
yes.
to go from you're taking something that by no means, and again, the whole conversation there, it really was theater. It really was, because she's taking a fact that has no basis in fraud. Could there be fraud in those numbers? Yeah, there probably is, right? Maybe there are tests being ran that should have never been ran, that are just being ran for profit. Yes, I agree that that's probably happening to some degree. But to say that $2 billion number is fraud, and then for him to be like, well, I'm not in yet, but
He basically
I would have support if it was.
He basically said, I'm not in, I don't know, but it sounds good to me.
Yeah, he's like, well, if it is fraud, then yeah, we're definitely going to pursue it. And it's like, she's jumping to the conclusion. He's saying, I don't know, but if it is fraud, that's bad. And there's the soundbite, right?
Yep.
They got the soundbite.
Yep. So I couldn't agree more with everything you said there. Like, at the end of the day, like, is how they're doing the preventative checks perfect or great? Probably not. Could some things change with it? Probably so. But do you not want them to do preventative checks? Like, there are some clients of ours that actually like the house calls because they don't have to go anywhere, and they can get their medical checks done every year, and it makes it convenient for them. And a lot of them might not get their medical checks at all if that wasn't an option, right? So like, there's two sides of the coin here for sure, and I mean, Medicare as a whole, like I said earlier, original Medicare is not a proponent for preventative care, which is so dumb to me, right? Like, I'm not, I think there's got to be a way where we can, value preventative checks for people, because preventative checks for people, there's been a trillion studies done that it catches things earlier, and sometimes that ends up being life-saving. So like, I like that Medicare Advantage plans will pay for much more preventative care than original Medicare. Well, it does. That's an upside of Medicare Advantage. Original Medicare, again, there's a lot of situations where seniors will get $500, $600, $700 bills for their physicals, and they're like, what is this? Oh yeah, Medicare doesn't think that's medically necessary. They're like, what? Like, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
So anyway, this next spot that I went to, they go a little bit more into Medicare Advantage prior authorization, specifically AI prior authorization issues that have been
There
had.
we go.
So
here we go.
Let's jump into this.
Seatbelts, everybody.
For example, advances in telehealth, and that is important to not forget those lessons. But so I'd like to spend my time just getting a better understanding of your thinking on the role of AI in healthcare delivery. So let's start with this.
So if you didn't watch yesterday's pod, Dr. Oz specifically, one of his things that he was big on was finding ways to use AI and systems to automate prior authorizations and claims. So this is kind of what she's coming back to on, because there are a lot of carriers, or not a lot, but there are some carriers that are doing that right now. And it is causing a lot of challenges in terms of denials just being done without really, you know what I mean? It's not a very good system right now.
Well, that's the thing, is the pitch is automated approvals right away, but what's happening is also automated denials.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Probably more so denials than approvals where they shouldn't be. Right. Like, so anyway, let's continue.
With how health insurance companies are using AI to make decision about prior authorization decisions. Could you talk a bit about that? How do you think, or do you think that AI should be used in prior authorization decisions?
Senator Smith, I enjoyed visiting with you, and thank you for sharing some of your ideas.
Another one.
And
I enjoyed
a good place to
visiting
start.
with you.
AI can be used for good or for evil. And it, to a large extent, depends on who's using it for what purpose.
It could be Sunny from iRobot, or it could be Skynet. Your choice. Your decision.
Uh,
a vital role in accelerating pre-authorization. One reality in the healthcare system right now is the average insurance company has about 3,000 procedures that they use, they rely on pre-authorization from, but they're not the same 3,000 procedures. So if you switch insurance companies, you may move from one that used to pre-authorize a knee replacement, the new one doesn't. So I would argue that to use AI wisely, we would make a decision, which is we're only going to pre-authorize 1,000 procedures. Everything else just should get done because it's only 1,000 where there's a concern.
And this, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what I think you're referring back to what you said earlier, which is that we use pre-authorizations too much. And I think I heard you say that earlier. But I want to dive in on this a little bit more because there have been reports and lawsuits that have alleged that AI has been used by 3 of the largest Medicare Advantage insurers to determine how long patients can stay in hospitals, denying those claims, kicking people out of hospitals or even out of step-down clinics when they're not able to take care of themselves at home. And this is a big concern. I think my view is that a human needs to have a final say in these decisions that insurance companies are making. And I'm wondering if you would agree with that.
I agree with you, but if I can add just one more layer, this sounds like our conversation in your office. I think that we should be using AI in the agency to be able to tell what insurance companies are doing with their AI. The best way to detect bank fraud is not a person looking at whether a fraudster is going in to steal money, because most of us aren't thinking about fraud. So you're not very good at detecting it. So if we see that there's something being done, for example, inappropriate use of AI or inappropriate denial of services with AI, we should be using AI within the agency to identify that early enough that we can prevent it, and we should do it real time, not 6 months down the road.
Use it as a tool to address whether an insurance company is using prior authorization inappropriately.
And protect the American people. They should actually know what that AI is telling us, so they should also feel empowered to push back when they don't think it's right.
So here's another example in the time that I have. You've talked about using AI to augment care, especially in Medicaid, where we have serious shortages of mental and behavioral health care providers, I think. Dr. Oz, how should AI programs be deployed to support patients that are experiencing mental health challenges?
After I was nominated, I started spending a lot of time looking at technologies just to understand what could be the future. And after meeting with a lot of the leaders in artificial intelligence, and seeing a lot of different demonstrations, I can attest to you that we are months away, not years away, from having AI tools that could have a conversation with someone that you care about, pick up subtle details about how they feel emotionally about a problem, whether they're going to follow through with dealing with it, do they really understand what the doctor or nurse told them. All of this is going to become part of the fabric of how we expand services. And this is not about removing doctors. I agree with your first premise that humans have to be involved, but an internist who's capable with decision support and a little bit of help from AI dealing with the intake could see twice as many patients. I'm making that number up. We don't know that for sure, depending on the severity of the illness, but see a lot more patients in order to get through the day. And that's better resources for everybody.
So here's the concern that I have with this, because I think sometimes this is not transparent to patients. And that to me is extremely important. It's been documented that there are chat bots out there that have been advertised as providing social and emotional support, and even
it's been documented that there's what do they call them? Chat bots.
Robots. You know what this segment has reminded me of is, do you remember last year where like every major CEO would be interviewed and they would just like see how many times they could cram AI into what they were saying, and then like the next day you'd see like the stock would like bump up like 2% because they said AI like 100 times during their interview. They're like, well, we're going to use AI to do AI stuff, and AI is really incredible, so we're going to have AI do a lot of AI and great AI. You know, it seems like there's so much being built into this, just it's very speculative. It's very, he's saying, he's like, well, it could help twice as many. I'm making that number up. We're not years away. We're months away. It's like, it sounds like a CEO to me, like pitching the future of their company, their product.
So we got about 15 minutes left of the show. I thought it would make some sense if we kind of took some time and went into kind of our thoughts on not final thoughts, but just like, having a conversation about some of these things that we didn't have a chance to talk about yesterday. I think you mentioned some of them earlier. I feel like I've already kind of said this, but I'll just kind of reiterate it. I think a lot of this you can't take really too much more than a grain of salt with. I think you hit it right on the head yesterday when you said that it was a job interview.
Yeah.
You know, and like, and how many times was there like, you know, he's like, was the answer, well, I'm not in there, but this sounds good. Or, you know, I don't know. I'm not in there. I'm not involved, you know. There's a lot of that, you know. And to be fair to him, right? Like, would you or I say anything different if we were in that position? Like,
no.
I'd be like, well, I'm not inside. From the outside looking in, I think they're incompetent. Every single person. I'm gonna fire everyone day one, but the whole organization, clean house. You know, at CMS, but but at the end of the day, how much can you really take from something like this where he just doesn't know the job yet? He doesn't know too much of the inner workings. The senators clearly don't know what's going on. You know, the very beginning, in the first 5 minutes, when they called it the Centers for Medical and Medicaid Services.
Yeah.
You know,
They don't even know what it stands for.
They don't even know what it stands for. So how much can you really take from this? It's tough to say. Couple of those guys or gals don't seem like they're our friends. I can tell you that much.
No.
But yeah, anyway, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so and I think again, like that last segment about AI, it is very job interview-esque, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to say all the words that sound good. Yeah, and you know, props to Dr. Oz for very clearly trying to build relationships with people behind closed doors. To see that, you know, hey, I was in your office, we talked about this before, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's very clearly trying to, you know, someone in the comments, I think it was on yesterday's episode, someone mentioned, or maybe it was one of the posts from the weekend, mentioned that, you know, it was a masterclass on how to make friends. And I think they were referencing that book.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah.
Yes. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
By Dale Carnegie.
Yes. Look at our little bookworm go. Someone said that it was a masterclass on that. And looking at some of these clips back, I mean, how can you say it wasn't? I mean, he's literally, you know, bipartisan. He's on both sides of the aisle having private meeting, you know, trying to build rapport because he's trying to get the job done. You know, he's trying to get hired. And then once he's in there, I'm assuming he'll probably want to kind of continue with a lot of these relationships, right? So I thought that was impressive. But one of the things though that came up on yesterday's podcast that I wanted to talk is this concept of having a multi-year plan. You know, I don't feel like we had a lot of time to discuss this. It was kind of a polarizing topic in the comments. What are your thoughts on that concept?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous, and I don't think it'll ever happen. If you really think about it, right? Like, there are no types of insurance that do that, and 2 years is a long time to be locked into a plan.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, maybe the plan doesn't change, but your needs as a beneficiary might change. Right. So like, it's just dumb. It doesn't help anyone. And I think it was just something he said in the moment that was like, he was trying to come up with a good answer, you know, some type of solution, you know, thinking outside of the box. But when you really look at the logistics of it, it's an impossibility to me. You know what I mean? I just don't see it ever seeing the light of day.
Because the problem he's trying to solve for is, I believe this was in regards to the churn rate, right?
Yes.
So he's talking about how many people are changing plans every year, which most people would agree is problematic, right?
Sure.
If you have a huge number of people jumping from plan to plan to plan every single year, that can create its own set of issues. So like I understand where he's coming from, but yeah, I don't even know logistically how would that would affect, like how would you even be able to implement something like that?
Like, do you make AEP every 2 years? What about OEP? Do you get rid of OEP? Like,
right.
you know, what
Right.
happens on the off years of AEPs? Do we all go on vacation? Like during that time of the year, you know, like, oh, it's off year of AEP.
Evens. We vacation during odd years. Even years we work.
Yeah, even years we have to work real hard. Yeah, but on odd years it's Hawaii. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense at all. And for anybody that's like concerned about that, or, you know, it's like, oh, this might happen. It's not going to happen. Book it.
Yeah.
Book it. I'm saying it right here, right now.
Yeah.
Take it to the bank. It's not going to happen. I
think if it did happen, it'd probably make it a lot harder for newer agents to come into the industry. You know, you come in during an off year. Good luck. You know, good luck.
Little Billy, it's an off year, so it's not looking great for you. There's not much for you to do.
Oh man, that's too funny.
It would flip everything on its head in a negative way. I see so many more negative implications of that versus any positive ones. And at the end of the day, people are not okay. There might be some of this going on, but a lot of the issues with plan flipping are not really necessarily because of AEP. It's because of abused SEPs. And I'm sure he doesn't know that.
Right.
You know, there's no way he knows that. Truth be told, plan flipping during OEP is more problematic than any other time of the year, because once the app hits CMS, the person literally can't change, even if the plan hasn't started yet. So like,
yeah,
if I'm on a plan and someone calls me up and they're like, you'll grow hair if you sign up for this plan, I'm like, really? And I sign up. It's at the time of recording this, it's the 18th of March. So I sign up. Turns out that not only will I not grow hair on this plan, but I lose my doctors, my prescriptions aren't covered, all my benefits get cut. Within 48 hours, that app hits CMS and I can't change. My OEP election period is used up unless I qualify for another SEP. Whereas with other election periods, it's last app in. Right? So like,
yeah.
I think until the effective date, you can still fix it. You can still put another app in. You can still do something about it.
Yeah.
So it's just, it screams to me like just trying to spit out some kind of answer.
Spitballing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Without really knowing
much
of the details about it.
Yeah. That's genuinely what it felt like to me too. Is like he's just trying to come up with something in the moment. So a couple quick things. One is, I was reading in the comments, someone was saying that he's a licensed broker with TZ Insurance. So does Dr. Oz does he have a book of business? Did he sell it off? Do we know?
I don't know the details.
Do you want any speculation on that? What do you think that was? Was he referring people and he had ownership?
I don't remember. But there's a way to find out. Let's see. ChatGPT. Tell me the details of Dr. Oz.
Wasn't it TZ
as
Insurance?
An insurance agent.
I bet if I had to guess, it was probably a referral situation.
I'm sure of it.
There's no way he was writing policies.
So ChatGPT said, I don't think this is right. I don't know. ChatGPT. Okay, I'll read you what ChatGPT says. This is not my opinion.
This is the robot.
Talking to the robot. No, Dr. Mehmet Oz was never an insurance agent selling policies. He is best known as a heart surgeon, television personality, and former Republican Senate candidate for Pennsylvania. His career has primarily been in medicine and media, not selling insurance. However, during his 2022 Senate campaign, there was some controversy over his ties to the insurance industry. Reports indicated that Oz worked with or had business dealings related to health insurance, particularly through his connections with insurance companies and healthcare businesses. But he was not personally selling insurance policies like a licensed agent. I think he does have his license. I think it was like he was. I think it was. I don't
It
know
had
for
to
sure.
be.
Had to be like a referral system.
Yeah.
Oz is not sitting down at the kitchen table.
No way. No way. But I could totally see a situation where, again, being this celebrity status, especially especially that demographic. I mean, he's essentially carved out that demographic of, people, the age bracket of probably, 50 to 70. They recognize his face, know his name, like, any type of advertising or marketing he's doing to his audience, I'm sure they're probably very receptive to. So it would make sense to me that if he is licensed, because I saw something about him being a licensed insurance broker with TZ Insurance or whatever it was, it would make sense to me that, he'd be like, hey, I'm going to run this ad. I'm going to funnel people from my audience over to you, and then you're going to give me, XYZ split, whatever it is, right? I own a third, I own a half, whatever the deal was. But it would be crazy if he actually had ownership on a book of business. Imagine if he had ownership on a Medicare book of business right now.
That'd be epic.
The CMS administrator coming in, he's got chips at the table. That would be wild. Obviously, a huge conflict of interest, but very interesting to speculate.
I just picture myself. I'm being like, well, that would make my life harder, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm making rules, if I was in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much to cover. It took 2 episodes, you guys.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, Mr. Shelton, on Dr. Oz hearing politicians that think it's the Centers for Medical and Medicaid Services.
Guys, I think this is going to just be an ongoing situation. As things continue to change, again, it seems like the new administration's been in office forever now, but it hasn't even been 2 full months since the inauguration. We're not even at 60 days yet. So I am anticipating more of this to come, more potential changes, more stuff from Mr. Dr. Oz himself. So, I would say to those of you who've there's a portion of you who've already made your mind up on what's going to happen with Dr. Oz. I would ask those of you who've done that to really wait and see. And I mean that on both sides. There's some of you who think Dr. Oz is coming to save you. You think Dr. Oz is your savior. Some of you think Dr. Oz is Satan. I don't know why you've already chosen either one of those sides. I'm kind of withholding my judgment until I can actually see him do his job. Because I'm cautiously optimistic. I've said that from the beginning. I'm still cautiously optimistic, even after the Senate confirmation hearing. I'd like to think he's going to come in and do good things for us and do good things for CMS. That would make us, easier to transact business as a Medicare agency, as a Medicare broker. So that's what I'm holding out to see. But I'm also I'm waiting to form my final opinion. And for whatever reason, there's a group of you out there and it's both sides of it. You've either already thought that this man's the devil, or you already think he's your savior. And I'm holding judgment till he actually gets in and does the job. And let's see what happens from there. But obviously, we'll keep you guys updated. Mr. Brindle, final thoughts on Mr. Dr. Oz. Mr. Doctor.
Yeah, I mean, to reiterate some of the stuff that you said, we don't know what things will look like with him at the helm. We just don't know. There's people out there that are talking as if they do know on both sides. He's going to be great. He's going to be terrible. We don't know. I don't know. You don't know. He doesn't know. He hasn't done the job. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, like, I think the word or the phrase cautious optimism is the best approach here, because I do mean what I said many times now. I said it on yesterday's podcast. I said it over the weekend. that it can't get worse than who's in now.
Yep.
It can't. She is an atrocity.
Yeah.
And
Shaquita.
so just
Her
just do it.
reaction to her name.
just
my-
visibly
Oh
ill,
my God.
visibly
You're like,
ill.
"Ugh."
Jake, that needs to be on March's blooper reel. Okay. Shaquita. Christian has a physical reaction to her name. He's like, oh, I gotta go vomit.
But
Ugh.
anything that gets her out, I'm on board with. You could tell me a chimpanzee's running CMS. I'm like, sign me up. Let's go.
I'm here for it. Let's go.
I'm here for it. So, I would think, that should be the attitude here. And there are a couple of agents out there. I do believe it's the very small percentage, like 2 or 3% of you, that actually think she's done a good job. Like you guys rumble with me on this a little bit. And it's like, man, there's so
that's
much.
exhausting.
There's so much to teach you. There's so much. There's so much to help you. I need to help you.
Just trying to help.
Trying to help you. So that's my final thoughts, right? Cautious optimism is the best approach. We don't know how he's going to
Yeah.
be, but he's
Yeah.
not her. He's
And that was
not
literally
her.
a glorified job interview that
Yeah.
we just witnessed. If you're trying to carve out 30 seconds of that Senate confirmation hearing to prove a point about what you think is about to happen, it's just stupid. Don't do that.
Yep. Agreed.
Don't do that.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to comment for Freebie Friday in the Facebook group. However you are consuming this show, we appreciate your guys' support, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Hopefully in the next one, Dr. Oz is not being cradled, but you never know what happens on this show. Appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end. We'll see you on the next one. Here's to your guys' massive success. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.